I have the most extraordinary partner in life.
It was one of those headlines that stopped everyone in their tracks. Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman split after 19 years.
Incredible mom. Loving, maternal,
At first, the news felt like a shock. The collapse of a Hollywood marriage that had seemed untouchable.
My wife, Nicole Mary, is here tonight. I love you, baby girl.
But as the dust began to settle, another story emerged, one that had been hiding in plain sight for months.
Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban have separated. A source tells ET, quote, "She's devastated and didn't want this to happen." The shocker comes just 4 months after this love fest at the ACMs.
Who's having more fun today, you or her?
We both are equal.
The couple just celebrated 19 years of marriage in June, Nicole marking the milestone with this sweet photo of them. But were there clues? Keith was absent from Nicole's summer memories post she shared last month. And this was the last time they were spotted together by photogs at the World Cup in June. That same month, we spoke to Keith in Nashville at CMA Fest and asked about Father's Day.
Any special plans?
Well, I guess I'm not the one to ask. Yeah, we'll see.
So you let her plan?
Yeah.
The couple have reportedly been living apart since the beginning of the summer. Keith's been on tour and Nicole's been busy working, shooting Practical Magic 2 in London and gearing up for the 3rd season of Big Little Lies.
We've got a timeline for it now. The time it's now.
Signs were everywhere. Whispers tucked between photo ops, awkward silences overshadowing grand appearances, and subtle absences in places where unity used to shine. The truth is, this breakup didn't come out of nowhere. It unfolded step by step, each moment quietly revealing the unraveling of one of Hollywood's most admired couples. By the start of summer 2025, the foundation had already cracked. While the world believed the couple's busy schedules were keeping them apart, Nicole immersed in filming the much-anticipated Practical Magic sequel in London, and Keith crisscrossing the US on his High and Alive world tour, the reality was more complicated. This wasn't a temporary separation dictated by logistics. It was a permanent physical split. Reports confirmed that Keith had made a decisive move. He established his own residence in Nashville, away from the family home, while still married. For a couple who had long juggled transatlantic lives between London, Los Angeles, and Nashville, distance had always been part of the rhythm. But this time, the distance wasn't geographical, it was emotional. That decision alone shifted the narrative. Keith wasn't just away for work, he was building a separate future. Nicole, according to insiders, hadn't agreed to this and was still fighting for the marriage. And it was that imbalance, one partner already detached while the other still holding on, that began to surface in public. The first clear crack appeared in June 2025. Just days before their 19th wedding anniversary, Nicole and Keith attended a FIFA Club World Cup match in Nashville. At first glance, it seemed like a routine outing, but body language experts noticed what casual observers missed. Judy James, a renowned analyst, described the encounter as uncharacteristically cold. Nicole appeared stiff, her movements tense, almost as though she were forcing normalcy. Her attempts at affection looked more like playful challenges, an effort to spark a connection. Keith, on the other hand, leaned back, disengaged, looking past her rather than toward her. Even in fleeting gestures, his lack of response spoke volumes. What drew even more attention was a small but telling detail, a quick flick of Keith's tongue. A micro-expression James interpreted as rejection or discomfort. Tiny though it was, the gesture revealed the strain he was under, torn between the reality of a broken marriage and the expectation to project unity. What made this shift even more striking was how sudden it appeared. Just a month earlier, at the ACM Awards, the couple looked like their old selves, laughing, affectionate, completely in sync. The transformation from warmth to distance within a few short weeks was undeniable. The changes became even more obvious as their anniversary approached. On June 25th, Nicole upheld tradition by posting a heartfelt black and white photo captioned, "Happy Anniversary, Baby Keith Urban." For years, the couple had celebrated their milestones this way, with affectionate tributes on social media. But Keith's response was deafening in its silence. No anniversary post, no message of his own, just a solitary red heart emoji left as a comment beneath Nicole's dedication. For For outsiders, it might have seemed small. For those familiar with the couple's patterns, it was a glaring shift. In a world where celebrity anniversaries are almost staged performances of togetherness, Keith's minimal gesture felt like a quiet refusal to participate. It was, in essence, a symbolic withdrawal. As the summer wore on, the distance grew more visible. Nicole shared a carousel of warm family memories on Instagram in August. Photos with her daughters, Sunday and Faith, and with her sister Antonia, who would later be revealed as her biggest support during the separation. Keith was nowhere to be seen. His absence from such intimate family highlights underscored a truth that could no longer be ignored. He was already gone, both physically and emotionally. Yet all of these subtle signs, while telling, were still somewhat open to interpretation. It wasn't until a live radio interview in early July that the truth came crashing into view, unraveling the facade that had been carefully maintained. On July 1st, just days after that unbalanced anniversary display, Keith appeared on an Australian morning radio show, Haley and Max in the Morning. It was supposed to be a standard promotional call-in to boost his tour. But the segment took a sharp turn when the hosts introduced their infamous wall of truth, a space where no question was off-limits. The co-host, Max Burford, didn't hesitate. He asked Keith what he thought about Nicole filming romantic scenes with younger actors like Zac Efron. A bold question, especially given the fragile state of his marriage. For a couple already balancing on the edge, this was the exact nerve that couldn't be touched. And Keith's reaction said everything. There was no laughter, no quick deflection, no smooth PR line. Instead, the Zoom connection went dead. Silence. Keith was gone. At first, the hosts assumed it was a technical glitch, but the stunned tone in their voices told another story. The producer chimed in, speculating that Keith's team had pulled the plug deliberately to avoid further probing. Panic, it seemed, had hit the call. But what truly confirmed the sensitivity of that moment wasn't the silence itself. It was the frantic cleanup that followed. Almost immediately, a source close to Keith rushed to People magazine with a strong denial. Keith did not hang up. Period. This is a complete nothing burger. The statement was oddly forceful, especially for something that could have been brushed off as a dropped connection. That overreaction, instead of smoothing things over, amplified suspicion. Why scramble so quickly unless the question had struck right at the heart of the matter? Looking back, that deadline was more than a technical glitch. It was the loudest silence of all. The moment Keith Urban, without words, revealed that his marriage to Nicole Kidman was unraveling. From there, the timeline of their separation became impossible to ignore. The early summer brought the physical split, with Keith moving into his Nashville home. Late June showed the public cracks at the soccer match and the lopsided anniversary exchange. Then came July's radio silence, an unintentional preview of what was to come. Piece by piece, the facade collapsed. Even small details that once seemed insignificant took on new meaning. Earlier in the year, Nicole had applied for residency in Portugal. At the time, Keith's absence from the application was dismissed as a scheduling issue. He was busy with touring, after all. But now, in hindsight, it read differently. It wasn't a logistical hiccup. It was Nicole quietly preparing for a separate future. The final confirmation came not from speculation, but from paperwork. On September 30th, 2025, the divorce announcement became official. But what the public didn't know at first was that critical agreements had already been signed weeks earlier. Keith finalized his part of the parenting plan on August 29th. Nicole followed on September 6th. By the end of summer, the outcome was already sealed. What fans and tabloids witnessed in June and July wasn't the breakdown itself. It was the aftermath, the visible tremors of a marriage that had already ended behind closed doors. And when you step back, the pattern becomes clear. The awkward silences, the subtle refusals, the absences from family posts, the desperate attempt by one partner to hold on while the other had already stepped away. It all forms a portrait of a relationship that ended long before the headlines caught up. What makes this story resonate isn't just the collapse of a Hollywood power couple. It's the way it all unfolded in the open, stitched into small details most people overlooked at the time. In an age where celebrities curate their lives down to the smallest post, the truth often reveals itself not in the polished images, but in the breaks. the moments where the script slips. Keith Urban's quiet refusals and one devastating silence told the story months before the official announcement ever did. And perhaps that's the most haunting part. The end wasn't declared with words, but with absence. A missing post, a heart emoji, a deadline on a radio call, each one a silent goodbye. By the time the divorce was formally confirmed in late September, the world had already pieced together fragments of the truth. Fans looked back through social media posts, photos, and interviews, realizing how the signs had been there all along. It wasn't a sudden collapse. It was a slow unraveling that had unfolded in plain view. But the most striking element of Keith and Nicole's split wasn't just the end of a nearly 2-decade marriage. It was how quietly, almost invisibly, Keith chose to step away. Nicole Kidman, by all accounts, had fought to preserve the marriage. She held on to traditions, posting anniversary tributes, weaving Keith's name into public celebrations of their life together, and presenting an image of unity she still hoped to sustain. But Keith's choices told a different story. Silence instead of acknowledgement. Physical absence instead of presence. A home in Nashville without her. Even in the moments that seemed ordinary, a soccer match, a family photo reel, his withdrawal spoke louder than words. That contrast between their actions is what makes this story so poignant. In long marriages, especially under the public eye, the end often doesn't arrive with a dramatic declaration. Instead, it comes through small refusals, subtle disengagements, and the quiet retreat of one partner while the other is still reaching out. Keith's silent goodbye, as it has been called, wasn't one act, but a series of moments strung together. Each one another step back, each one leaving Nicole standing more alone. It's also a reminder of how much effort goes into maintaining the illusion of celebrity perfection. For years, Keith and Nicole were celebrated as a model couple, affectionate on red carpets, openly supportive in interviews, united across continents. Their brand wasn't just about individual success, but about their partnership, a love story admired around the world. And yet, in a matter of months, that image fractured. What the public saw in June and July was less a marriage holding strong and more a performance crumbling under its own weight. The cracks were everywhere if you looked closely. The body language at the soccer match told one story, the Instagram imbalance told another, and the radio silence in July turned whispers into confirmation. Even Nicole's search for grounding in Portugal, with her sister Antonia as her anchor, signaled that she was preparing for a life built outside of the partnership she once thought unshakable. By the time the legal papers were signed, the emotional split had already been lived. Keith had built his separate residence, his separate routine, his separate identity as a man no longer tethered to a marriage. Nicole, left to interpret the silence, responded the only way she could, by turning toward her daughters, her sister, and her work. In her posts and her public appearances, there was still dignity, still grace, but also the unmistakable air of someone carrying the weight of something deeply personal. And that's where the deeper meaning lies. Beyond the celebrity headlines and the fascination with Hollywood breakups, there's a human truth about how relationships end. Sometimes it's not a loud, fiery clash. Sometimes it's not even a mutual decision. Sometimes, as in Keith and Nicole's case, it's a quiet withdrawal by one partner, a gradual fading out, that leaves the other grasping for connection until there's nothing left to hold. The lesson is as sobering as it is universal. Even the strongest-looking relationships can fracture silently. Even the most public love stories can be undone not by scandal, but by distance, disconnection, and the absence of effort where it once overflowed. For Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman, the end wasn't written in divorce papers. It was written in the silence, in the heart emoji that replaced words, in the absence of a face from a family photo, in the unanswered attempts to touch, to smile, to connect. What remains now is not just the story of their separation, but the echo of what once was. For nearly 2 decades, they stood as an example of resilience in love. Their story, even in its ending, reveals the complexity of human connection, the way love can both sustain and slip away, the way silence can sometimes speak louder than any declaration. In the end, Keith Urban's goodbye to Nicole Kidman wasn't spoken on a stage or written in a statement. It was silent, delivered through absence and distance, until the silence became undeniable. And while the headlines marked the official date, the truth is the marriage had ended long before. The rest of us just didn't hear the silence until it was too late.